meeting of the Tiverton Town Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11. Thank you. Consent agenda. Approval of the regular, roll call.
Councilor Perry?
Present.
Councilor Shabbat? Present. Councilor Ryan?
Present.
Councilor Hilton?
Present.
Councilor DiMederos?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor LeBeau?
Yep.
All present.
Approval of the consent agenda. Approval of the regular session meeting minutes of August 28th, 2017. Receipt of the minutes from the following boards and commissions: the Charter Review Commission 2, the Economic Development Commission 2, the Planning Board 5, and the Cemetery Commission. Correspondence received and filed. Approval of the tax assessors abatement, the Town Administrator August Police and Fire overtime reports, the Town Administrator Department monthly reports for August, Susan Gill, Planning Board AO activity report for August 2017, Treasurer July revenue and budget reports, Town Administrator distribution of documents regarding building and planning department's organization for upcoming workshop. Would anybody like to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
CA2A, Charter Review Commission meeting minutes.
Anyone else? I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda with the exception of C2A.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion's been made and second. All those in favor? Councilman Edwards, CA2, Charter Review Commission.
Thank you. Just in reviewing the Charter Review Commission meeting minutes, the Charter Review Commission references a number of documents which are not attached in the minutes. And I don't know if there's a member of the Charter Review Commission here, or maybe we can get word to them, but for future minutes, if there's extensive references to documents which we don't have, if you could provide those as well, that would be extremely helpful in reviewing the minutes. And with that, I move the passage of CA2A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor? I'd like to entertain a motion to bring E3 up at this moment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor? E3, Town Administrator, update on Eagleville Road zoning and violation.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to ask Rep. Edwards if he could fill us in on some of the efforts that have been made in order to resolve the situation.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. I'd like to thank your town administrator for allowing us a stay on the eviction. We are working through the state house on both the Senate and House sides. We have multiple agencies working on trying to get this family relocated so that they are legal. And we are working through local churches as well. We have a number of people working on this issue, so we just need some more time. These things don't happen instantly. We became aware of it on the Wednesday, not last, but the Wednesday before Labor Day. So we've been working diligently trying to make this happen, but again, these things don't happen instantly. The family is here to show that they exist, that they are working very, very hard themselves to find another place to locate to. And we just, as I said before, we just need some more time, and we appreciate the town's indulgence.
Any questions from the council? I want to thank you for working for this family.
Thank you very much.
Open forum, announcements, comments, questions, and presentations. Number one is the presentation by Office of Energy Resource and Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to attempt to turn so I can talk to everybody. But my name's Becca Treach, and I'm from the Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources.
And I'm Ryan Mulcahy from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving us some time today. We're here to talk about some of the energy programs offered by the state that hopefully Tiverton can take advantage of, and possibly highlight some of the things you already have taken advantage of. So I do have a presentation that I printed out that hopefully all the council members have. Yes? If there are any extras and we can pass them to the public, that would be great. Thanks. All right, so getting started, just giving a little intro as to who we are. The Office of Energy Resources is the lead agency on state energy policy. And so that means we work on pretty much providing clean, affordable, and reliable energy to the whole entire state. And that encompasses electricity, natural gas, and delivered fuels. Just as a brief intro to the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, I think Brian can give a brief summary.
Sure. So we at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank are a quasi-public agency. We finance a variety of infrastructure projects, primarily falling into four main categories, those being water and sewer, road and bridge, brownfield remediation, and then the topic we're here for tonight, energy efficiency and renewable energy.
And so just to give context as to why exactly we're here for a couple of reasons. First off, the state has the Rhode Island, or Resilient Rhode Island Act, I always flip around, which pretty much has state goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, primarily 80% by 2050. We are on track to meet some of those goals for at least 2020, but to reach the 2050 goal, we have a lot of work to do. And so we're pretty much going around to all of the towns to try and help everybody participate in the programs that we have available and to help everybody move in the right direction so we can achieve these kind of sort of high-reaching greenhouse gas reduction goals. At the same time, the governor did pass an executive order in 2016. We call it our Lead by Example executive order. And that has required state agencies to achieve certain goals regarding energy efficiency and renewable energy. I have that list on the slide in terms of the specific goals that are outlined there. But in trying to help state agencies achieve those goals, we've created a bunch of programs and initiatives that ultimately municipalities can take advantage of as well. And then just looking at Tiverton's local goals, you guys are clearly on the same path that we are. We also reviewed your comp plan, and you specifically call out water and energy conservation. So you guys are already on the right track in terms of the plans are there. So we're just trying to give you resources to further those plans. In terms of specifics, if we flip to 2 slides from there, I always like to start with this in terms of the Lead by Example awards. This is always where we start because I want people to know that they can get recognition for all of the great work that they've done. So starting last year, our office put together our first Lead by Example awards that recognize both state agencies and municipalities for all their great work in both energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. And so I just have this flag so that next year, so the beginning of 2018, I'm sure you guys will have accomplished quite a lot. And so at that point, please do apply so that we can recognize you for all your great work. Otherwise, it's difficult for the state to know all of the projects that are happening. Moving on from there, I wanted to mention that, as you probably know, if you have any kind of new construction or large renovation project going on that is a public building, that public building needs to meet the Green Buildings Act, which means that it needs to meet LEED certified standards or greater. What I wanted to let you all know is that my office specifically is working to develop stretch codes, so specific code documents that new construction or large renovation projects could follow that would easily meet the Green Buildings Act requirements and at the same time would help leverage as much money as possible through National Grid's energy efficiency programs. Those documents are going to be done in the beginning of 2018, and so this is just a resource for 2018 moving forward. If you have large-scale new construction, please do use those documents because it'll be helpful to, again, get as much money as possible from National Grid's energy efficiency programs. Moving on from there, I wanted to mention the use of Portfolio Manager. And so our office, once again, has been using some of our own money to help put municipalities on Portfolio Manager. So what is Portfolio Manager? Portfolio Manager is a software. It's a free software online that allows you to track your energy usage in large-scale buildings, so public buildings quite easily. And so it can help you flag what buildings are using too much energy, what have been using under, where you might do some extra improvements in terms of maybe where you need some extra installation or where you should replace your light bulbs, that type of stuff. And so what we've been doing is we've been funding the University of Rhode Island. There's a small team there that actually helps to get data from public buildings onto this platform so that, again, the municipalities can look and see where the problems are and where they might enhance their particular buildings. I know Tiverton is already on Portfolio Manager because you have taken advantage of that. I don't think all of the data is necessarily updated, so if there is one person in the town that could sort of take that on, or at least get the training from the URI group, that would be really beneficial for you. It's also perfect timing because National Grid, starting in early 2018, is actually going to automate this process, which means that they will actually, if you sign off for it, will allow the automatic upload of your energy bills to Portfolio Manager. So once the accounts are set up, which URI has sort of already done, and they're updated up to the current date, then starting in early 2018, it could be an automatic process. So you just have that data and be able to see those trends, which hopefully is good timing for everybody. Because unfortunately, downloading that data and uploading can be a bit of a manual, heavy process. In addition to that, if you move to the next slide, sort of renewable energy and energy efficiency assistance, we always like to mention that the Office of Energy Resources is more than happy to help with any kind of technical assistance, including writing RFPs, navigating the general purchasing process, which we all know can be quite difficult, and then trying to figure out siting considerations for both solar and large-scale wind. So any questions regarding those type of projects, please do feel free to reach out to us. We do have expertise in that. Moving on to the next slide, it's simply an overview of some of National Grid's programs. I think you guys have already taken advantage of them in most of your projects, so I'm preaching to the choir here. But I did want to mention that National Grid not only has programs for public buildings, but it also has programs for residential and small business and commercial. So anybody in the audience who maybe hasn't had an energy audit in a long time, or a couple years even, please do call National Grid up. They're more than happy to come and give you a free energy audit and give you more information regarding what you might do to save energy, especially with the upcoming rate hikes in October. I think it's really important for us to try and save wherever we can. So that's my little plug for National Grid, and no, they do not pay me to say it. Moving on to the next slide, we do have a list of purchasing mechanisms that we've put in place. As I mentioned before, because of the governor's lead by example executive order, the state agencies are trying to do more energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. And to do that, we've tried to make mechanisms that could expedite the purchasing process for those particular services and those products. And so what we've come up with is we have a master price agreement, 508, which gives you a list of pre-qualified vendors that can do turnkey energy efficiency projects. So if you have a building where you know you want to go in and simply replace all the lighting, or simply upgrade the HVAC system, something simple and sort of straightforward, we encourage you to use that master price agreement, because it ultimately lowers the burden in terms of having to go out for a full RFP. Instead, you have to get a certain number of quotes, and then you go with the lowest bidder. In addition to that, we also have continuous recruitment 44, which is a very similar concept as to a master price agreement. Again, it's a list of pre-qualified vendors. The only reason it's a CR is because we can keep adding vendors to it as they apply. But 44 is specifically for renewable energy projects, small scale, anything that's under, I believe, $1.2 million. So you can do sort of solar for the roof of a building. Wouldn't be able to do large scale solar in like a field that's like over a couple acres, but anything on a roof you could probably do through this. In addition to that, I did want to mention CR23. That is the last sort of purchasing mechanism that we have available, and that's if you wanted to do a bunch of buildings. We'd encourage you to go through the use of an ESCO, so an energy service company. Energy service companies, ultimately, you would take out a loan to pay them, but they are guaranteeing you that the energy savings that they would achieve through those projects would pay for that loan. And they have a guarantee with that. So they track that data, and if that doesn't happen, then they will ultimately not charge you for it. So there's some contracting there, but if you're looking to do really large-scale energy efficiency, they can be helpful because they can manage very large projects over multiple buildings. All right, let's see, moving right along. I apologize that it's such a long list, but there are lots of things that we've been trying to do. and hopefully this is helpful to you. The next slide is all about aggregated energy procurement. And so what does that mean? The state, in terms of trying to reduce our overall energy costs, goes out to reverse auction every so many years to procure our supply for both electricity, and then a separate auction for procuring our supply for natural gas. So the more demand we have in that auction, the more likely we are to have much lower prices. I do believe that our last natural gas auction, we had gone out to and asked most of the towns and municipalities in general whether they wanted to participate. The next natural gas auction is in 2019, so this is something to keep in the back of your brain. But in 2019, if you're interested in joining that procurement, again, the larger our demand, the more likely our prices will be lower, which is always good for everybody. All right. Next program is all about LED streetlights. I believe you guys are already doing this, so congratulations. Thank you so much for doing that. It will save you a ton of money going forward and a ton of energy use. I know you guys are going through PRISM, and I do believe you've already applied for the specific incentives through OER. So our office is already involved in that. I only wanted to flag to you guys that in addition to that, hopefully you are also applying for National Grid incentives, and I think you are. But in case you have any questions or concerns or hurdles with that, please do reach out to George. His email is right on this slide. He's the one that is coordinating OER's incentives for streetlights, and he can help with most of the hurdles that might pop up. All right. And then, lastly, before I pass it off to Ryan for financing stuff, we have a charge-up program. So I wanted to let everybody know that if you're at all interested in installing electric vehicle charging infrastructure, we do have incentives for that as well. It is first come, first serve, but it is up to $75,000 total. I believe it's up to $15,000 per charging station and up to $15,000 to help also either lease or purchase EVs. The caveat is that these charging stations need to be in public areas, so they should be available to the public as well. But if you're at all interested in electric vehicle charging station, please do reach out to Ryan Cody. Again, his email is right on this slide, and he can give you more information about that. I know he's worked very hard to make that application process as streamlined and easy as possible. So, next is all about the Efficient Buildings Fund, so I will pass it off to you, Ryan.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys about 3 financing programs. The first of which, as Becca said, is the Efficient Buildings Fund, or EBF for short. This is a program that makes long-term financing at attractive rates available for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in public buildings. So if there's a building in town that is notoriously leaky, or you'd like to put some LED lighting in, this would be the program for you. The way that it works is we generally try to set it up so that savings that are realized by the projects exceed the costs of repaying the debt. And one of the ways that we do that is through stretching the payments out over a long term. So we'll go up to 15 years in lending through this program. You do receive a reduction in your interest rate from what your market rate would be. If you're at all familiar with any of the other programs that we have at the Infrastructure Bank, that's a pretty standard practice. We just did our first round of financing through this program last summer, and I believe we gave a 15% reduction off the market rate of borrowing. We're currently going through the process of closing on the second round, and I believe it'll be either 15% or possibly up to 20%. Just depends on what the numbers look like. So basically the way that this would work, any projects that conserve energy or produce clean energy are eligible for financing. We also do have an engineering consultant, an engineering firm that we've brought on board who is available to assist the town. So if you guys need a little bit of help looking at your building stock, looking at your energy usage in your buildings, they are available to assist you. And I would encourage you to reach out to me or to any of my colleagues at the Infrastructure Bank, and we can help you set that up. So then if you skip forward to the next, I guess, 2 slides past the header, talk to you about the CPACE program, which stands for the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. This is, again, for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. The difference being that this is for commercial businesses, so private property. Commercial meaning commercial, industrial, retail, nonprofit, agricultural, multifamily of 5 or more units. pretty much anything that's not publicly owned or residential would qualify under this program. Like I said, again, it's for energy efficiency or renewable energy. There's also a couple of other types of projects that are potentially eligible. Those include water conservation, environmental health, or environmental safety. One of the unique aspects of this program is that the loans can go up to 25 years. So that's quite different from what you would get from a commercial bank. And the reason it's possible is that the loans made through this program are actually secured through a municipal lien placed on the property. It's a kind of a unique situation, but it's considered very secure. And so the lenders that we have partnered with are willing to lend up to 25 years, and it's based on generally the useful life of the improvements that are being installed. CPACE, for your businesses here in town to participate, does require that the town council pass a resolution stating the town's desire to participate in the program. So, if there's interest, again, I would encourage you to reach out to me, and we're happy to come back out here again if and when that resolution would come before this body.
Is it all right to interrupt and ask a question?
Please do, yeah.
So one of the things that jumps out at me is you say it's through a municipal lien. So in a sense, the municipality is going to be shouldering some of the responsibility in that loan.
May I?
Yeah, please
Because
do.
I'm actually familiar with the project. You're correct. You're correct. Essentially, what happens is under this program, with that lien, it becomes the town's responsibility to collect if there's a default.
Okay.
So you know.
Yeah.
It's true, but why it's particularly beneficial is for the resident that owns that business, they could then invest in an energy efficiency project, even if they knew they weren't gonna be there for the next 25 years, so they wouldn't get the full benefit of that project, but they could pass that lien on, or that loan on, to the next owner of the building. So they can sell it with the property. It's tied to the property instead of the actual owner, which is a huge benefit in terms of, again, a lot of these projects have a 25-year sort of benefit time frame, and so it can encourage people to do projects where they may still be moving. So, pros and cons. I was like, do not have a solid recommendation for you, but pros and
Yeah.
cons for both.
No worries. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we have had 16 municipalities opt in to participate in the program, all over the state, big, small, urban, rural. So again, happy to come back again another time to talk more about CPACE. And then the final program that I just want to touch on quickly, because it's more in the coming soon category, will be similar to CPACE, except it will be for residential homeowners to, again, install energy efficiency or renewable energy projects in their home. This is a program that we are working on at the Infrastructure Bank in partnership with our friends at OER. And I would expect that we will see that program at some point next year. So I would just encourage you to keep your eyes peeled.
And so this whole presentation, we've mostly been talking about energy efficiency. Some of the financing options also help with renewable energy. The last program I really wanted to highlight was Solarize Rhode Island. And so this program is specifically to solar. And Shauna Beeland in my office is the go-to expert on it, but I will do my best to summarize. And so how does it work? It works by the town, OER, and a nonprofit get together, and they actually procure or go through an RFP process to get on board a solar vendor or a solar installer. And they set up a funding mechanism so that the more people who sign up for solar, the cheaper the price is for everybody. So there's a whole campaign about it. There's a bunch of events to get the word out. You get all these different tiers. Once you hit a certain tier, the price drops by a certain amount. And so it's really to get everybody involved and to get as much people as possible to go solar. If you have any questions or interest in pursuing that particular campaign, please do reach out to Shauna. I think the next applications, I think we can choose up to 5 municipalities, but I do believe the applications are due in the next month or so. So please do email Shauna if you're at all interested. It's a great program, and it really gets residents excited about solar because they do such a great job of marketing. I think that is really all we wanted to cover today. If you have any questions, please do reach out. I also have my business card, so I will pass those around. You have all of our contact information on the back. But if you have any questions now, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council? Administrator? No.
No, not at this time, but certainly we'll reach out to you as we
No,
formulate our plans.
Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Advertise public hearings. Approval of proposed amendments to Chapter 6, Article 2, Section 6-30, Article 4, Section 6-55, Article 5, Section 6-77, and Section 6-80, and proposed addition title, Article 6, Outdoor Seating, Section 6-83, and Section 6-84, Alcoholic Beverage Liquor License. Attorney DeSisto.
On page 10, the change to the ordinance in section 6-80 is the BYOB provision is eliminated. On page 11, Article 6 is the outdoor seating section. Would be a new section to your licensing ordinance, starting with section 6-83. The main thing to focus on here is that any licensed restaurant or victualling house would be subject to the provisions of this section. That would include any establishments that are not licensed for alcoholic beverages. I want to make sure that that's clear, even though this is in the alcoholic beverage licensing section. I won't go over the provisions for you. I think that it's fairly clear, but I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on the requirements for this section.
At this point, we do not have an outside liquor license, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So this is a new proposal.
Yes, it is.
Now, the restaurants that are presently serving alcohol has to apply for an outdoor liquor license?
When their renewals come up, yes.
Okay, when their renewals come up?
In November, yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the council?
I have a question. With the new, this one line?
It doesn't matter.
With this new ordinance, the people who do have their liquor licenses, all the businesses in town, so long as they haven't had a problem meanwhile from between the years that they've had them, they should have no issue adding this provision to their license. Is that correct?
When they come up for renewal, there's some other requirements that they need to file in terms of paperwork. And there's one other thing I've got to mention too, by the way. There was a change in the state law, which is relevant for renewals. But once the renewal takes place, what they would do is file the additional paperwork for the outdoor seating, referencing the fact that there already was outdoor seating. The other thing that your liquor license holders need to know is that the General Assembly passed a law this year that was signed by the governor that requires when the renewal takes place that proof of liability insurance be submitted along with the renewal application. So to answer your question, there's some additional paperwork that will need to be filed for the renewals this November.
Which would include the proof of liability and what else?
The requirements here in this section, so that the liquor license will reflect the fact that the premises will include the outdoor seating. That means they have to submit a plan showing where the seating is and all that.
And would they have to submit a plan to prove that they had enough parking for this
That's
additional?
correct, yes.
And how about the septic?
That's another requirement too. It's the same as parking. It goes to capacity. The demonstration has to be that there's sufficient capacity for the additional seating outdoors. I would mention that under this ordinance, unlike some other communities, the seating outside is in addition to what is inside. Some communities say that if you're going to have outdoor seating, you have to eliminate indoor
Right.
seating. This doesn't have that. So because there's additional seating, there has to be a showing that there's sufficient parking, and in the case of those license holders that are not connected to the sewer system, that there is sufficient capacity in the septic system.
So if the folks don't have sufficient parking or whatever for outside tables and they prefer outside tables for the summer season, will they be allowed to shut their inside seating down and have outside only?
Typically, the way that's handled is to go to the zoning board for the variance for that. And the request would be either to have the additional seating, notwithstanding the fact that there isn't sufficient parking, that would be the variance, or perhaps the condition that there be a shifting, a seasonal shifting. But that's really a zoning issue.
I'm done.
Thank you. How about street parking? Does that count for some of their parking spaces? Because I know this has come up in the past.
Yes,
So if this-
if there is sufficient off-street parking, again, that's a zoning consideration because it's not on-street parking, but one of the things that the applicant would say is, I don't have enough in my parking spot, but there is sufficient on-street parking for my business.
Madam President, I have a question for Tony. Okay, so number 6 up there, that's the last page. It says, "Any licensed restaurant seeking approval from the town council for outdoor seating must reduce the amount of tables and chairs indoors by the amount of tables and chairs that shall be placed in the exterior."
Yes, that's.
That seems awfully harsh to me.
I'm sorry, I correct what I said earlier. In the case of someone that's on a septic system as opposed to sewer, there would be the reduction there. That's a requirement. There should also be an "is" there after the "that" in the first line.
After the what?
After the "that."
Oh,
the
that,
first-
yeah, I
the first
corrected
blue
that. Yeah, but I guess the thing is, all right, well, these guys are coming up for renewal in November.
Yes.
I mean, is there any time frame that they can, correct something? Because if they're going to come up in November and say, okay, this is September, they probably don't even know about this, and we're going to say, bango, you got to take all those tables out of your indoor, or it just seems, something seems wacky to me, to tell you the truth, because the whole purpose of being outside in a patio is to enjoy the nice weather. So you're actually, it seems to me, and I was like, I'm not sure what I'm missing here, that you're punishing people because they had a successful business and they've got outdoor seating now. And so that's what it seems to me. So is this something that is a Tiverton thing that we can work on, or is this something that came from the state and we can't do much about it?
This is a local ordinance.
Okay,
Several
so-
communities have outdoor seating ordinances. Pretty
Okay.
much they're all tailored to the specific needs of the community. Take a look at section 6-84 on page 11, subsection 3.
Wait a minute. 684 subsection, okay, go ahead.
And that's subsection 3 on page 11.
Yep,
Any validly issued outdoor seating permit shall be permitted during such times as determined by the Tiverton Town Council. And the renewal thereof shall be upon application to the Town Council for the regular monthly May meeting of the Town Council. You might want to move that to April. May might be a little too late in the season. That's the first thing. The second thing is this goes to the outdoor seating. My comments were directed towards the liquor license, because the premises has to change. That's under state law. However, it would be subject to this situation. So I think if somebody came in November
Yep.
and said, look, I'm going to need some time to get all this done.
Yep.
You have that 4-month gap between November and April for these things to get done.
okay, but you're talking, okay, so you're thinking more for the on-site waste treatment system when you say that? Because is that what you're, because it still doesn't answer my other question, that if you want to put outdoor seating, you have to take away some of the indoor seating, right?
I think it's only if the septic does not allow that amount of seats at the restaurant. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's the condition. So what you're saying, if this doesn't work by April, you've got to get a new septic in there?
No,
You have to do what?
no. If your existing septic
Yep,
only accommodates a certain amount of patrons,
yes,
the provision that you're referencing on page 12
yes.
makes it so that there's a shifting from indoors to outdoors during the outdoor seating season. If the septic system accommodates additional seating,
Well, then you're okay,
yes,
Then you're fine.
okay.
yes.
And if you're not, just check, just asking, what about having porta potties? Is that a possibility?
And I don't think the Department of Health would allow that,
Okay, not even temporary,
no.
okay. Any other kind of solution that is either, because then you're suggesting that somebody has to do an upgrade on their septic if it doesn't, is that right? They have to do an
Yes.
upgrade on their septic, or they have to reduce their seating? Those are the only two options.
Well, you'd keep your seating the same. If you wanted the
Well, yeah,
additional
okay,
seating, you'd
right.
need to make some additional upgrades.
Yeah. Okay, I still think that sounds harsh. I mean, I think it's gotten more and more popular over the past several years. I understand that we're trying to write something, but at the same time, it just seems, someone's working on their restaurant, they're doing a good job, they put some tables out there, and it's like, bango, you're done. And I don't even know, actually, one of the things I'm saying this, maybe it's because I'm just looking at this, I don't know how many is this going to affect. So, well, I don't know, because I don't know how many, what's the capacity of people's septic, but it just seems to me, I think we gotta come up with something else, because it just seems very harsh to me. I don't know what it is.
I'm going to open this to the public in 1 minute, because this is a public hearing.
I'm going to direct my comments to Tony. The one thing I think that, most of this I think is pretty nice, and we've needed it for a while, but one thing I'm a little concerned about is that it may be confusing in that we've got outdoor seating under the liquor license provision as opposed to separate victualling things, and that may confuse people who are applying as to what, if I'm not serving alcohol outside, do I need an outdoor seating license? And I think the answer is still yes.
Under this ordinance.
Under this ordinance.
Under this ordinance.
But you're not going to find it in the Code of Ordinances unless you look under liquor licenses.
That's correct.
So-
But it's the licensing chapter.
It is the licensing chapter, but I almost wonder if we should do this in such a way that it makes it clear that, that if you're going to have outdoor seating, you need an outdoor seating license, and then you may additionally add permission to serve outdoor liquor on top of that. You can't get an outdoor liquor license if you don't have outdoor seating. So it's just a little confusing to me on that. Secondly, I think to avoid confusion, because one of the problems that we have here sometimes is people come in, they read the ordinance, they don't see it, they get in front of us, and somewhere in the process, it breaks down, and then they end up, 10 trips in front of the council. I do think that we might want to actually call out the parking requirement, so people are aware that when they come, they need to be prepared to identify parking that's consistent with the number of seats they're going to have indoors and outdoors. And I'm really concerned about this whole sort of outdoor seating septic system plan the way that we have it. And I'm all for businesses being able to expand, but, septic systems are designed for a certain capacity, and of all the things that shouldn't be overusing their septic capacity, I would put restaurants at pretty close to the top of the list, because it's not a good situation to be, and I see Leroy Kendricks from the wastewater district nodding his head at me. So, but I'm also a little bit worried about our overstepping jurisdiction on DEM around septic systems. Now, I don't know what DEM's latest set of regulations are, but the last time they had talked to us about this, when it came to outdoor seating, they don't allow people to say, we're going to, unless they physically remove all the seats and close the inside of the building, switch their seating capacity from indoors to outdoors, especially because it doesn't frankly work when it rains. If you move all the tables outdoors, that's great till it rains on Wednesday, and then you don't have any place for people to eat. So, and the other thing is, they make distinctions for outdoor seating based on whether or not you have, sort of full table service, or you have single serve articles, which is basically takeout. So we're kind of stepping into their jurisdiction here. I'd be much more comfortable with saying that you need a, either a DEM certificate of conformance with a number of seats for whatever you're going to have, or a system suitability determination that says what you're proposing to do is legal under DEM guidelines, and not RB trying to adjudicate people moving tables, or whether or not they're, I have full service inside, but outside I'm only doing takeout, so I don't need the same capacity, I just think it would be better to go with requiring as I said, either on your septic permit, if you have a restaurant, it says the number of seats and it says the kind of service that you have. And if you want to change it, you get a new system suitability determination from them.
Any other comments from the council or questions?
Uh,
President.
Councilman Edwards?
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, I would just say that under 684 subsection 9, the whole no advertised or promotional materials should be applied, attached to, or otherwise included in any exterior elements, including table umbrellas. I'm opposed to that just based on the fact that restaurants that serve alcohol can typically benefit from the deep pockets of the liquor companies, and they can have a ton of stuff provided to them for free rather than having to come out of pocket and pay for those. So, I mean, especially the table umbrellas is one, which those can be very costly, and you can get some nice ones that aren't overly burdensome with logos and what have you. But I would just like to see that entire section stricken. That's it.
Second.
Madam President? Yeah, actually, that was the exact same thing I was going to do. So I would agree with Councilor Edwards.
Any other questions and comments? At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. Would anyone like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Steve McDonald, Black Goose Cafe, 74 North Court. I just have a lot of concerns with this because it does fall under the alcohol section of the ordinance, but it specifically refers to just outdoor seating. And like you said, this is a very confusing issue. I was led to believe that this is merely a outdoor service issue and not an outdoor seating issue. And I spoke to several restaurants today. I just found out about this 8 hours ago. Made several calls to all the restaurants who I know serve outside, and very few of them knew this was going on tonight. So the notice, I know, was probably legally done, but just to be helpful to the restaurants who this is going to most affect, it wasn't adequately done. And I think that was letting us down. It's something that's going to seriously affect our business and our money. Everything you mentioned here is an added-on cost. I heard about going to DEM to get approvals, site plans. I mean, we've been established, we've been doing this. I mean, I had approval, I fought through a licensing board, and they said I can't have alcohol outside. Now that's all back to square one again. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to go through it section by section, if I have that type of time available, but like I said, it specifically keeps mentioning outdoor seating, but it seems to be talking about outdoor service. So I don't know why it's under this section. Like you said, it will be missed by somebody. I can't just say I want to get rid of my liquor license and still keep people eating outside or taking their food and going outside. And this permit also only has a time frame. So it only runs for a seasonal period. So I think all of you are probably patrons of the coffee shop. All their seating has to disappear. You know that. That's outdoor seating.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be gone. And they probably don't have enough room in their septic to have 2 seats out there, never mind what they have out there now. So that's going to all be gone. So you're going to change the character of the town. I mean, you're going to change Evelyn's, my business, up and down the whole stretch. This is just what people do. They it's a nice day, they grab their food, they sit outside and they eat. And now you're saying you're hiding this within a outdoor service, and then you're forcing us to go ahead and get a license at another time period. It's not another checkbox on the liquor license. I have to now come in and it was originally May, now April, with another fee involved, I'm sure. And now I have to go through a whole site processing again for this. And what's a site process? And is that a professional engineer, or is that just I can draw something up? I'm not sure what that means. It's very vague, that's in there.
Most of them that I've seen have been hand-drawn.
That'll be allowed, though, a hand-drawn, I can come in and just hand-draw something?
Yeah.
And all right. And my understanding is that you have to also, the agreement has to be executed between the town and the business owner. And now, does this have to be recorded, and does this have to be recorded every time you go for this license? Is it a recording fee involved in this?
Tony?
No.
And do we have to have this agreement every year? I mean, it just, the way it's written, it seems to bounce back and forth and very vague about some of the stuff that, everything seems to be another added-on cost to the business owner.
I'm not going to address the costs, but what I will tell you is this is just part of your, you renew your licenses every year.
But it's at a different time period, and it's another form.
It's another form, but when you come in November, you're asking like the indemnification agreement, just another document that you sign when you file your other stuff. Every year you're required to come in. I know you have to come in for another one, and that's something for the council to decide, but I don't think that the paperwork's as burdensome as you may think.
Well, it was I had to fill out 3 documents just for the liquor license today,
Currently,
just currently. So this is another document I have to fill out.
4.
4.
And
That's
then the
just for the
state's
town, though.
requiring you to produce a 5th, but that's not the town. Now you have to show
But
evidence of your
it's not the
insurance, too.
town, but it's all part of doing business in the state of Rhode Island. So it's layer upon layer. So it's always, well, it's one more form and one more fee. I mean, try to
There's
make.
no fee associated with this ordinance.
There's no permit fee at all?
No.
Okay, that's fine. But there's a site plan involved that either I have to hand draw, or someone coming in has to have an engineer hand draw. But then, what I also am concerned about is that it only targets people with on-site treatment systems. Why, now, if I have an on-site treatment system and, you know, you use too much water at one point, I have to pay to get that pumped out myself. Now, if someone hooked up to a town system uses it, they burden the town system, and all, as taxpayers, have to pay that additional cost for the additional burden on the town system. So,
No.
no one pays that, so,
Well, when if you're on town sewer, you pay a sewer bill that's metered. So if you're putting extra stuff.
right.
Your sewer bill is based on how much you're putting into the sewer. So you're not paying a pump-out fee, but you're paying your sewer bill. And that's not a fixed number, it's based on how much you put into the sewer.
Right, but there'll be increased cost for the burden on the system itself, and then the amount of grease and everything else that goes into it. I don't know why you're worried about someone's on-site septic system when that's a DEM issue. That's what we already have to comply with everything that the DEM complies with. Now you're asking us to comply with the town's DEM issues.
All we're saying is that if you're going to come to us and say, when you come in and you build a restaurant, you know, brand new, one of the things that you bring to the building official is your DEM certificate of conformance that says how many seats you can have in your restaurant.
Right.
So all we're saying is that if you want to expand your seats, and I don't think you would be in that category, because you already have permission for outdoor seating, correct?
But the way this is written, I thought I had to go back to square one, and so I'm already set for my liquor license and my outdoor seating. I don't have to come in and comply with this, and this only new businesses?
Well, you'd have to you'd have to renew your
All right.
license. but-
That's where I'm confused.
Tony,
But
this is confusing me a little bit too. So if you're already approved for outdoor seating, but you're not serving liquor out there, you don't have to come every year unless you increase the size of your restaurant. Once you come and say, this is the amount of seats I have, this is what my septic can hold, and that's approved, they don't have to come every single year if things don't change. What they have to come every single year for is their liquor license,
Is the renewal, yes.
which right now, this town doesn't grant liquor licenses outdoors. So that's what we're doing now, is we're allowing people to serve liquor. And I know people have been doing it, and this all occurred because a new restaurant came
Right.
to us and wanted to have outdoor seating with a liquor license, and it was brought up, well, this town doesn't give outdoor liquor licenses.
Which is fine, I understand that, but this is like crunching two issues into one section, where it also says an outdoor permit within this section. It doesn't say an outdoor service permit, it says an outdoor permit.
Well, I think that's what Councilman Hilton was saying, that this is confusing.
I agree with you. It's confusing to tell whether or not you need an outdoor seating permit, an outdoor victualling license, an outdoor liquor license,
Right,
or
that's
like,
what-
it's, I agree, it's not clear.
Right.
and
Because I could
straightforward.
choose, say, hey, I don't want to have an outdoor service, but, because I don't want to mess with my outdoor seating, that's more invaluable. But now the way this is written, I have to come in front of it I can't just say I don't want a liquor license anymore and keep my outdoor seating.
Do you agree with that, though?
Frankly, I'm getting a little confused, but what I'd like to do.
Well, that's the document.
And you wrote it.
What I'd like to do is have a chance to rework some of this.
Okay.
I think if I can clear up some of the predicate questions, we can get to some of the, you can get to some of the deeper policy issues.
Meanwhile, I'm still going to keep the hearing open right now because there might be other
Oh,
concerns.
that's correct, yes. I mean, I'm
All right.
taking down all the notes.
Oh, good, okay.
What everybody's saying, hopefully, this can be redone so that some of these issues get cleared up.
Right, because what I understood is that this was meant to help us. And everything in here, all I see is more costs and more paperwork. I know you only say it's one or two, but it just seems like it's gonna change the whole character of Tiverton, the way this is worded. It's not gonna help anybody. You gotta think before you do it. Look up and down the strip, how many places aren't going to have the septic capacity to have all those chairs outside? And what's seating outside? Is it just a bench sitting on a porch? Does it mean a table? Does it mean an Adirondack chair? What is seating? Like I mean, it needs to be more clearly written, so I can opt out of it, I can decide I want to go through with it, or I have to change my whole business plan. That's my concern, because what is outdoor seating? You know,
And that's what this whole hearing is
Right.
about. So you can come to us, give us your concerns, and we can make changes if we feel fit.
all right. I just
So,
want to be clear,
thank
because
you.
it doesn't, I don't know if everybody's clear that that's outdoor seating and outdoor service in one thing.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Right. Whatever you consider.
Wait a minute, name
Oh,
and
Barbara
address.
Pelletier.
You always do that, Barbara. You break our microphone.
I'll bring some glue stick next time. Whatever you consider, I just want you to be aware of the fact that since my last 6 years at Discover Newport, every year consistently the restaurant earnings to the town have gone up 3 to 4%, so which is a nice increase to our budget. So whatever you consider, make it easier for restaurants to expand and serve and all of that, and stay within the state law, but still try to somehow or other keep that in mind and saying, if we make it easier for so-and-so to do what they want to do, we will at the end benefit from that, which is a nice income. It's a nice, and we do need to expand all of that. I just want you to think about that, whatever decisions.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience?
Hello. Jim Gorman from the Four Corners Grill, 3841 Main Road. Several people brought up the question of indoor versus outdoor seating, reducing the number of seats. And I was wondering, you know, I can't even imagine how I would do that, but if you look at a typical summer's day, when people come in, if it's a beautiful day outside, then half the people, or 3/4, will sit outside, and 1/4 of the people will sit inside. But if I were to have to physically remove the tables from the inside so they could sit outside, then no one could sit inside. We have 34 seats right now inside and 26 outside, so there'd be almost no place to sit inside. And where could I possibly put the furniture? It doesn't even make any sense. But we've always kind of looked at it in a balance in that it's not so much the seats, Because when you start talking about seats, it gets complicated. In a 4-seat table, if 2 people are sitting there, does that count for 4 people? Or does it count for 2? Or if there's 1 person sitting there, how many does that count for? Same, same whether it be outside or inside. Really, you more have to look at the customer count. If you're rated to be able to handle, say, 40 people, your septic system, if 20 are outside and 20 are inside, they're all using the same septic system, but it's not so much the seating as the customer count. So if the problem with that is, how do you maintain that? How do you keep those customers that come in when you're at, say, let's say you have 40, and then 41 and 42 walk up and they want to sit inside? What do you tell them? They look and they see empty tables, and you say, well, you can't sit there because we're at capacity now. Well, you have empty tables, I know, but you can't sit there. Well, I will sit outside. You can't sit there either until somebody leaves. Even though there are empty tables, I mean, I can imagine that coming up. So, but the closest thing to fairness would be a customer count versus a seating count, in my opinion. And the other thing is, the outdoor seating in a lot of places, in a lot of operations, they don't use the water, they don't stress the septic system like the people on the inside. They don't, a lot of them have paper plates or disposable glasses or what have you. So you might be at 40 people, but 20 of them may be really only stressing the system to a 10 count, let's say. So the last thing I want to say is that the Four Corners Grill, has been there for 20 years, and we are there all year round, summer, winter, fall, snowstorms, etc. And it's very hard to even just break even in the wintertime because the population isn't there, and it's just people aren't out. But we soldier on and we get through it, knowing that once the summer comes there, we have increased population come back, and we have a bigger seating capacity, and we're going to do bigger numbers, and we're going to financially make some sense out of having been there all winter when, some days if you do a few $100s in business, you're happy to do it. So as the previous gentleman mentioned, it's a serious subject, and it really goes to the heart of a lot of people's business, whether it's worth even being there or not, if the summer is really not going to be all that much more than the winter. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Any other comments?
Hi, Susan Gill. I'm a planning board member, but I'm not speaking for the planning board. I just wanted to give you some of my thoughts on it, and also having had personal experience with the city of Providence. Some of the things the way Providence deals with it, and I think probably Newport is similar. I mean, I see they use their outdoor seating to expand their summertime, seating capacity. It's not in lieu of. But I think like Providence, it probably was like April to October. Every year I had to go down and fill out a form, file a fee, and it was good for that time period. And that way it would be, and I think different seating and serving is different than people just sitting outside. So if it's a time period, I think that helps. Because one of the things I looked at this was, I see it under licensing, and I don't know if this is more like an ordinance. I mean, because you're setting limits on an activity. Whether it's a time of year that you want to limit it to versus year round. Because I don't know if it would be more just seating, in the winter time. The other thing that we needed to consider was the amount of parking, additional parking, if that was available. And the other thing that I thought was an interesting way they did it was a percentage of what their indoor seating allows. So say if it was like 30%, instead of saying you can double your capacity, if it was 30 seats inside, if you limited it to 10% or 30%, they could add 10 additional seats. They couldn't just keep going, And I thought, at the time, you go, well, all right. And I think part of that was they considered things like general seating, bathroom capacities, and all that kind of thing. So I think, some things that are more definitive is helpful than just leaving it open-ended for how many outdoor seats they add. I think if you are moving seats from inside to outside, like Ms. Ryan was saying, if you expand outside, you have to eliminate seats inside. I think you're going to get into a real big issue of how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to police that? I think that's a headache you do not want, and I don't know who's going to do it. And I don't think it's probably reasonable, because the whole idea of outdoor seating is to bring in more customers during that weather time. I think the biggest issue then again is septic. Anybody that's on sewer, that whole issue is not relevant for outdoor seating. But once you get into septic, it's a matter of if you want that to come before the council. I don't know if it can be part of a form or it has to come before you guys for approval. Some of the referrals go to police and fire and the building official. I don't know if you want planning board, like if a restaurant wants to expand and they have septic system, if that's something you want to go before the planning board to deal with, or if you want the council to have, that you guys have to look at the permits and the capacity and figure that out. So I don't know if that's something else you wanted to do. And I think that's it. I just think this seems still kind of loose. I don't know what the employees will clear tables and monitor adjacent areas for litter on a regular schedule. I don't know how you're going to enforce that or why that's even in a license requirement. I mean, I was just kind of unclear reading through this where this really fits in. It's kind of, you have licensing requirements, but it's almost like these are zoning issues. So that's my thoughts on it. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam President, can I just ask Sue a question?
Sue, please come back just for a minute.
Is that all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Just because you said the Providence and you said
Yeah.
about the percent, it just, I know you might not know at all, but I wondered if any of this changes due to the size of the restaurant?
Actually,
Percents as well?
Actually, I'm familiar with that Providence ordinance. One of the things that Providence wanted to do to encourage the restaurant trade there was to allow for the municipal sidewalks to be used by the restaurants.
Right.
And that's the percentage that it goes there. So when you go on, say, Atwell's Avenue, you'll see the tables outside. That's not the restaurant's property. That's the City of Providence's sidewalk.
Right.
They're allowing the restaurant to use that. That's where the
Right.
percentages comes in. There's indemnification agreements for that and
Okay.
everything. But I will say that Providence does not have the requirement that there's be any seating reduction. The ordinance is geared up to allow for additional seating to a certain percentage over and above what the restaurant has. Many of those restaurants that apply for the sidewalk seating in Providence do not have sufficient on-site parking. It's almost all off-site. So that zoning issue is not something that they implicate. The idea is to get as many people into the area as possible, and the feeling is that will increase business all the way down the line.
Right,
So
okay.
that's the chief, Sue's making
Yeah.
correct statements.
Right, and I guess I understand also, it's like, and it's the septic, it sounds like, is the key here. Is that right?
Well, I
Because
think
it's not
that's
an issue
definitely-
in Providence, they're all in
right.
sewer.
That's
Right.
correct, yes.
Oh,
So-
even in town, I mean, if it's not if a restaurant has sewer,
Yep.
then that doesn't really come into play. But if somebody's on a septic, it is a consideration that
Right.
that somebody has to deal with. It's just a matter of whether it's the clerk's office, or does it need to come before the council, or would it go to planning or zoning to sort that all out? I mean, it's, to try and streamline it.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? I mean, one of the things here that I think is a little bit confusing for people is there is a difference between service, outdoor service, and outdoor tables, right? So we have businesses in town that have outdoor tables, but not necessarily outdoor service, meaning you get takeout, you get what is considered to be a single-serve item, and that's why they call it single-serve. You go and get your one thing that you order as takeout, and you bring it out. That's a whole different situation than outdoor service where you've got china and glasses and, waitress service and all of that. And I'm also starting to think that maybe this ordinance is a little bit too broad in that I don't think we want to be overly restrictive for the simple takeout places that, you know, have some Adirondack chairs or some picnic tables outside versus, you know, that's different than somebody who's got full outdoor service, China waitresses, you know. I don't actually think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Black Goose is the only place where it's sort of takeout outdoor service, but with a liquor license. Am I correct on that? And that's the only occurrence of that anywhere in town at all.
Yeah.
So it's a little unusual.
Well, you know, this is not, there's just one thing you need to know. Parking governs,
Right.
you know, what any business can have on the inside. That's the first thing. But the rest of this is all policy considerations for you. So basically what you need to do, I think, after the public hearing ends is just tell me what to write. And this is why I said earlier, every city and town is different. Each one goes with, you know, what their specific issues are. So I think once we get to that point, just tell me what you want then.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that, too. I think we need to separate it more so that people understand it, too.
Yes.
It's too, people are gonna get confused because this was really for the liquor license. And it's under licensing, but now it has outdoor seating in there. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be it needs to be separated more and defined better.
I'm actually gonna ask some questions about the separation. I have some questions myself. But I think it's appropriate to get all the comments in, and then we'll go from there.
Anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, Dominic and Jane from Evelyn's Drive-In. I wasn't going to come up and speak, but I just concerned that this is an impact on the town. And I'm sure it's going to be an impact on us, maybe not, I don't know. But it doesn't sound like we all have all our eggs in one basket. It doesn't sound like we know what we're talking about, like broadly. And it's a huge impact on every family that's running a restaurant in this town, which affects the tax base of this town, which affects everything. So, you know, I mean, even like outdoor liquor license, we don't issue them. You know, outdoor liquor license means you have the bar outside. People will be running drinks from inside. You know, there's so much that I really feel like maybe you should pull the restaurant people together and have a workshop and try to figure this out.
Well, that's the purpose of the that's the purpose of the public hearing. This is just a draft document, and this is what we want to do, is discuss it with everyone who shows up here. This is a work in progress. It certainly isn't going to be something that we accept this evening.
Well, after listening to the last 3 or 4 people, I'm kind of understanding that, but when I didn't even know about it until last minute, it kind of stirred up a few, I know it stirred up a few other restaurants.
Absolutely.
So, you know, let's make the right move and do it the right way. That's all.
And that's what this is all about, so that we get
And I'm in for that.
Okay.
That's about it. Unless you want to say something. Okay. Thanks.
Welcome. Yes. Are you all right? Do you want to? Why don't you just come? Dom, right here. Yeah, right here.
I'm Chris Gorman from Four Corners Grill. My question is this. Actually, I have two. I always thought that you needed to apply, have an application for a second liquor license if you were opening a second business. So is outdoor dining now a second business to what you have indoors, in that you're applying for a liquor license outside?
No, under state regulations, every liquor license is confined to a specific premises.
Right.
So if someone wants to expand to the exterior of their building, that needs to be included in their existing liquor license. It's the same liquor license. However, the definition of the premises changes. And that's a state law.
Definition of the premises changes.
Yeah, Rule 27 with the Department of Business Regulations, Rules and Regulations.
Okay.
But those rules and regulations apply to the issuance of liquor licenses by municipalities.
Okay. So then am I to understand that we've been doing it incorrectly all these years? I mean, we've had outdoor dining for 20 years. So,
With the service of alcohol?
yes.
Okay.
That's
The
why-
purpose of this license was to allow...
That's why we're doing this.
Actually, the purpose of this license was to allow for that. It's not currently allowed under the town's ordinances.
So are we changing, in other words, I'm feeling like we're trying to find a solution to a problem that I didn't think existed. But there must be a problem because we're trying to find a solution. But I'm not quite sure what the problem is in that this is something, I mean, Jim and I have been at Four Corners Grill for 20 years
Right?
and run a very successful restaurant. However, like Jim mentioned, we're open year-round, 7 days a week. And if we cannot operate outside, and people aren't eating in takeout containers out in our patio. They are eating, on plates, regular plates, and they have a glass of wine, and they enjoy their dinner outside.
The next item on the agenda is for a license holder that was recently granted, and they, in connection with that application, it was pointed out that there was no ordinance that allowed for what they wanted to do. That's why this ordinance was originally drafted, to allow for the outdoor uses. It's not now. So I want you to know that's the case, and in fact, the next item on the agenda deals with the issue. It's that application.
Okay, so can we write an ordinance to basically,
Well, that's what we're in the process of doing.
right,
That's what we're in the process of doing, because you're right. People who've been serving liquor outside, it hasn't been allowed. Okay, and these new restaurants that are coming up asking for this, there is no outside liquor license here in Tiverton. So we're just trying to clean it up. That's what we're trying to do.
okay. I'm just
We're not
concerned
trying
there's
to
going to be
punish
some kind of
anyone.
major change or something in the business going forward. We need to know, that's all.
Well, that's what we're discussing, and we are not trying to punish anybody. We are not trying to close anyone down.
Okay, that would be good. Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the Tony.
The solicitor, okay,
Yeah,
go
that guy
ahead.
over there. When we got to be very careful with this because the casino's coming. If we pass an ordinance, is this ordinance going to be good for the casino so they can do stuff outside? Or are we going to do this through a subcommittee meeting with the casino? We got to be very careful that they can't slip in and start putting nightclub outside on the casino over there.
That's something that's appropriate for the host community agreement.
So we got to make sure, because I'm on
Yes.
that committee, we just got to make sure that this doesn't happen at the casino.
That's correct, yes.
That's a
Okay.
good point, Randy. Anyone else from the public?
Peter Monis, I'm speaking as a citizen.
What is your address, Peter?
83 Captain Circle,
Thank you.
Tiverton. May I speak directly to the solicitor on this? 'Cause I
Well,
think he-
talk to me, and then he will answer you if I direct it that way.
So I finally understand what you're trying to do here, legalize outside liquor serving. And that's what probably your direction should be, not related to seating. But we'll get to that point later on. Is there any problem with the bring your own booze? Because you can't bring booze outside the premise on, you gotta keep inside, according to your law here. Unless you could direct me on the state law about that, which is on section 658E. There's a relationship to the state of Rhode Island requirement. Maybe that legalizes or takes care of that problem.
Attorney DeSisto?
Are you referring to page 10?
Yes. No, page 8.
Well, I'll have to get back to you on
I
something.
think it's page 8, Tony.
658.
658E, no glasses or open bottles.
That's
You
it.
see that part?
And there's a reference to a state law. I didn't go into it, I didn't go look at the state law, so maybe it's okay, or maybe it's not okay.
That the state law references the requirement for tips training for alcohol servers.
So, there'll be a problem with bring your own booze then.
We've been through this.
Even with the BYOB, if someone is carrying in their own alcohol, you still need to have tips-trained servers.
Yes, that's fine, but I'm talking about permitted off-premise. No glasses or open bottles or containers, alcoholic beverages are permitted off the premises. So now you're not inside the building, now you're on the outside the building. Will that be okay?
The license is geared to the premises.
The whole total premise?
Whatever is defined as the premises is where the alcohol can be served and consumed.
So inside, outside?
Correct.
Okay. And then section 680, that's associated with the BYOB. You eliminate that whole section there. Why is that? What's the reason for that? Then you go to 681, conditions for issuance.
I honestly don't remember. And I'm sorry. I don't know why that was eliminated.
Let me look at it.
That's on page 10, section 6-80.
So should stay in place?
It's up to the council. I
Oh.
can't give a reason why it's eliminated, unfortunately. I just don't know.
Did you eliminate it?
Yes, I did, yes.
Okay.
Just draw blanks. But that's a policy consideration. It's been a part of your town, and
Yeah, this was put in place, how long ago? A couple of years ago, we discussed this. BYOB.
2015.
Anything else, Peter?
Yeah, I do have. So you guys going to decide on that then?
We will, after this is all over, we'll decide what we're going to do with the whole policy.
You know, I'm talking about this section here, 680.
Yes, we will decide
So if
that
you decide
eventually.
to eliminate it, then you have to revise all the section count, because it'll be wrong.
Correct, yes.
Okay, I just want to make that point. And the last point, which is, I think is very important, which my major concern is about, you're back down in, well, maybe section, starts off at section 6. Instead of outdoor seating, maybe you should say permitting outdoor liquor serving. Instead of seating, change the title one way or the other instead of seating. That's very confusing. It should be legalizing liquor serving outside. But the real point I want to get to is number 7, you deleted the old 7. Outdoor seating areas shall be distinguished from parking areas by solid, uninterrupted concrete or granite curbs and landscaping with physical separation for outdoor seating areas from parking. Well, I don't have to go, you don't have to go directly to all those points about curbing and all that details, but it should be a demarcation area for outside serving liquor. You don't want people wandering off that.
Go ahead.
You don't want people wandering off the outside serving area with alcoholic beverages, and that's going to cause a problem for the enforcement, drinking on the streets, sidewalks, whatever. And and I think there's a law, maybe too, that you have to have a sign to say, no alcohol beverages beyond this point. I would think you should add that into that area there. And maybe a time limit on the outside serving of liquor, maybe less time, than the inside, because when you go serving liquor to whatever the liquor license is for a premise, might be 11 o'clock, getting people drinking outside, maybe not in the particular areas of the town now, but in the future, people get very loud, and when they get a little couple of beers underneath their on the chute. So those are the points I like to bring out, and maybe you'll check.
All right, thank you. Councilor Edwards?
I just want to address Mr. Monos' last comment about the noise on the outside. I think that would be more of a noise ordinance implication, so I don't know if we need to duplicate efforts in this section of the license.
Well, you could limit the license serving the outside liquor.
To different times. Thank you, Peter. Anyone else?
Good evening, Roger Belanger, 125 Stafford Road, Tiverton. It seems like mostly everybody stole my thunder. Most of the things I want to say, I do want to thank Randy for bringing up the issue with the casino, because that's a big concern of mine with the mayhem that's going to be going on over there. And for Mr. Mello for bringing up the points about the timing of this thing and the types of establishments. I mean, having the Four Corners Grill have people sitting outside dining and having a glass of wine with dinner is one thing, and that's a whole different environment. But you know, having a bar room extend their bar out to the street and having that going on till 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's going to cause mayhem for the neighbors. Okay, so that needs to be seriously considered with a limitation. I don't know where that goes, but it needs to be considered just to keep some of the residents, because some of these places, for instance, the one that's being brought up tonight, the former, the only thing I know about is the former Benjamin's Cafe. I think that's the location we're talking about, right? That's that's in the middle of a bunch of houses. A lot of people live around there, and they don't need a bunch of rowdies out there carousing till 1 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time the bar room is open till. And then lastly, I'm glad he brought up about the safety, because that's a big concern of mine with everything's been going on in public, and just in general, people leaving an establishment after having a few. You don't need somebody stepping on the brake, the gas pedal instead of the brake, and then ramming into a whole bunch of diners sitting at a table. So these establishments should have jersey barriers or concrete poles or something that's going to protect the patrons that are sitting there. And it sounds like you have at least some verbiage in your ordinance to cover that. But the more protection you can provide these patrons, if you're going to do this, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Anyone else? At this point, I probably shouldn't close this. I should continue this public hearing because we'd have to re-advertise. Any of the councilors have any comments or questions?
Madam President, just, you might want to put in here that there's no permit fee.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second comment is, if the establishment doesn't have outside seating right now, and they're legal non-conforming, would that be an expansion of use? And would they have to go to zoning?
That's a question.
Yes, if they're a legal non-conforming use, yes.
Anyone else?
Madam President?
Councilor Edwards?
Just a suggestion from some of the restaurant owners that came up here tonight. Perhaps it would be acceptable for the administrator to reach out to those restaurant owners who were not able to be here this evening and let them know that this is continued to the next meeting, so that we can hear their comment as well, because I know that there are a significant number of restaurants in the town that should be informed of this, and I think we would like to hear their opinion as well.
And that's a really good point, but if any restaurant owners would like to contact fellow restaurant owners, I'm sure you all know each other and work together, that would be helpful too. And that's how I think the word of mouth got out today, was because of the Black Goose. Tony, first of all, we need to have a more of a clarification in my mind as outdoor seating and liquor license, because it really is confusing people. And like Joan said, we have to have some sort of where there's going to be a fee and when there's not going to be a fee.
Well, actually, I'll explicitly state it, but there's no fee in here. But may I ask a question? Because I think this is where the confusion comes from, which I brought out in my first comments. That would be on section 11, section 6-83. And the first sentence is, "The town council may allow by permit any licensed restaurant or victualling house outdoor seating subject to the provisions of this section." And later on, in section 6-84 on page 11, subsection 4, if alcoholic beverages are proposed. My first question is, should this just be geared to the service of alcohol outside?
Any
Alcohol
comments?
and consumption? Or should it just be geared to, or should it include those establishments that do not offer alcoholic beverages in the first instance anyway? I think that's one of the issues that I have. And the reason I say this is,
involve liquor and alcohol being served versus seating?
well, actually, yes, and here's why I say this. Initially, when this came up, the question was whether or not the service of alcohol was permitted outdoors, and the
Right.
answer is no. And if there is going to be service of alcohol outside, that needs to be specified in the license by state law.
Correct.
Okay? That's why this ordinance was proposed in the first place. Okay? As Ms. Shabbat has pointed out, other issues are implicated. Zoning in the first instance as to licensing, which happens anyway. It's your zoning ordinance. So you need to have something for the service of alcoholic beverages outside. You do need that. But if that's not going to be served, then you have the zoning issue, and I think somebody brought that up.
Mhm.
It's really a true zoning issue. If alcohol is not involved, zoning comes in anyway with alcohol, but if it's not, if it's just a restaurant that doesn't serve alcohol at all, that's my question. It's something that I brought up. This is a fairly standard ordinance. It's a good draft to talk about, to put things in and out. But that's the issue that I had. That's what I brought up in the beginning. Should it include those establishments that don't serve alcohol?
Well, if a restaurant has outdoor seating, I would assume that they're approved for that outdoor seating. That was not the issue. I would assume that when they came to the planning board or the zoning, these people are already established with outside seating.
That's zoning.
That would be zoning, so at some point, they must have gone through that process. Or they would have to have gone through that. Councilor Edwards.
I just have one comment. It feels to me like we're sort of overthinking this a little bit. And why don't we just, why don't we just look at a solution to maybe say we will allow for the outdoor service of liquor between, X month and Y month, subject to, being part of the premises defined by whatever their plan said that when they were established, either through
Right.
zoning or through permitting. I don't think we need to duplicate the efforts of the zoning board or the planning board in this ordinance. They let them establish what their outdoor premise will become, and that'll be the premise, and you can serve alcohol provided you meet the requirements.
Well, I think part of what it is that, you have to, subject to meeting all the other requirements that you need to have, including RIDEM.
Right.
But I think it's appropriate to have some certain parameters, too. Not a lot, but some.
No,
May,
one second, ma'am. Councilor Hilton.
maybe, and I am not suggesting we have regulations for all these categories, But maybe we should think about sort of three categories, right? We have restaurants or entities that are, they serve ice cream, or they're coffee shops or things like that. And maybe we should consider taking them kind of right off the table, right? Because that's just adding to a level of confusion. And let that be, if you have that, we're not gonna fuss about your picnic tables outside or your Adirondack chairs or whatever it is that you have. And then we just have to sort of decide whether or not we need to address outdoor seating of beyond takeout. In other words, you're actually having waitress service with or without alcohol, and then with alcohol, and decide if we need an ordinance or a permit for both or only one of those categories.
Yeah, that's a policy consideration. Just let me know what you want to do, and I'll come up with the language I think is best.
Counselor?
If we do what Ms. Hilton said, then these restaurants, these small ice cream shops, they can never expand without coming in front of planning again. God knows, we don't want to go in front of planning.
That's the opposite of what I was saying. I was saying
But
that
you just
there-
said you're going to get rid of the ice cream shops and not get rid of them, but so separate them from being a restaurant.
No, I'm sorry. If I wasn't clear, what I was trying to say is that we wouldn't try and put any sort of extra permitting on them. They get a victualling license anyway, right? And they just come get their regular victualling license like they do every year, and that's it. We wouldn't have any other, if you fell into a category of coffee shop, ice cream, you serve something in that category, you'd just be completely excluded from these discussions and could continue just to do things the way you do them now.
But if they wanted to expand, then they would have to still come in front of the council? Like if they decided the ice cream shop wants to sell hamburgers, and no, they can't.
I think the proposal is to exempt those type of establishments from the provisions of this ordinance.
All right, I just don't want any more government. We got enough. Sorry, I was wrong again.
You weren't wrong. It's very confusing what's going on right now. I personally think we should just concentrate on the license right now. I don't know if the rest of you agree with me, but the issue came up because we were asked to do an outdoor liquor license. There was no such thing, so we decided to clarify that. Now, am I correct to say each license would be depending on the restrictions that the council decides? So if you're in a very busy neighborhood, we could say you could only be outside till 9 o'clock. Is that true, Tony? Could we put provisions on their license?
You can put restrictions and conditions on, yes.
All right, so everyone would be treated individually, depending on where you are, how many people you have out there, and the time you ought to operate. I think we should, right now, for this discussion and for the further discussion, just concentrate on the outdoor license, liquor license, because that's what the issue was. I don't know if anyone agrees with me or disagree with me, because all the other issues are zoning. It's what they're permitted to do when they come in front of the zoning, when they want this business, and it really doesn't concern us in some ways. Do you agree with me? If you don't, tell me.
No, it's what I asked the question. If that's what the council wants to do, I'll give you language on it for the next meeting.
What do you all think?
May I ask Tony one question, Madam President? I thought, though, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but I thought on a victualling license, we were also supposed to identify the premises under the law.
This
just
goes to the earlier question that the
Right.
gentleman had between service and seating.
Right. But under on a victualling license, are we supposed to identify the premises too?
Yes.
I thought so.
So what I was saying, so, Tony, you really do have to give us advice. What do you think legally would be the simplest way to start handling this?
You know what I'd like to do is eliminate that language saying all licenses are subject to this. I think that's what the start is. And I do think it's appropriate at this time just to focus on the service of alcohol outside, because that was the original question.
All right, so we will continue this. If I could get a motion to, how long will you take to redo this a little bit? You want a month? You want,
I'm thinking a month is gonna need, you know what, that'll give the public some time for some input too.
exactly, so we'll do it for the first October meeting.
Madam President.
Yes, John?
Based on your suggestion, I'd like to make the motion to continue this discussion to the first meeting in October.
Second.
Motion's been made and second.
Public hearing, yes.
Motion's been made and seconded to continue the public hearing until the first meeting in October, which is October 10th. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Town council sitting as a board of licensing. Non-advertised license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Advertised license, subject to meeting all requirements. Herbert Lyrics, LLC, DBA, Lyrics Bar and Grill, 4 Stafford Road. Request approval of outside seating license for liquor and food, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Tony?
First, we'd like to apologize to every other restaurant in the town of Tiverton. We truly apologize.
Tony, 1 second, please. Tony, because we continued the outdoor license, it probably would be wise to continue this. Is that correct?
Does that mean that we can continue on like all of the other restaurants?
No. Am I right,
It's on
Tony?
you, Scott.
Am I right, Tony?
Yeah, that's not, actually, that's,
Go
unlike
ahead.
to those other restaurants, they never had the outdoor, the outdoor seating, so that'd be something that they need to ask for.
That's
So they're
why-
not,
that's why
not
we're
like
here.
the others.
All right, so we're going to continue this until the October 10th. No.
Actually, can I make a suggestion so
Sure.
they don't have to show up and maybe another continuance? It's probably best if it's just handled in the November meeting when the other licenses are renewed. They're gonna have to come anyway, so that's probably your best time. Have you opened yet?
No, I think it won't be this week, but next week. We're
Okay.
hoping next week.
So when they come back for their November license, this will be handled, and hopefully we'll have some kind of,
This way, in case there's any other last-minute tweaks or anything, they don't, I'll save them the trip.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes, Councilor
one
Edwards?
question.
Yes,
Can you let us know when you do open, so we can come check it out?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Very close. I think you're going to find it unusual because of the way it's set up. Like, we put album covers all over the place. It's going to bring a lot of memories because there's like every artist known that we could think of up there. You know, Frank Sinatra's album covers. So you're going to look around, and there's different lyrics on the sides and doors and everywhere. And it'll be fun to see where that lyric came from. Or, oh, I remember that album. I had that album. What were the songs on that album? I'm trying to remember. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. That's our hope anyways.
Well, thank you, I can't wait.
We'll
Thank
let you know. Thank you.
Welcome to Tiverton.
Appointments and Regulation Budget Committee, 3 vacancies. To next general election, November 6, 2018. We have 4 applicants. The deadline is September 15th, so there still is time to apply. What we thought we would do is interview the people that are here now.
Madam President, just a quick editing question. The agenda says 3 terms until 2018. 2 of the resignations were up 2018. I think 1 was up in 2020. Just an editing check. Thank you.
You always do it to the next election.
Yeah, Cecil, that wasn't a typo. Oh, you always,
But there's if you look at this section, there's also a limit to the number of people that can stand for election at any one time. So just a question. No problem.
Yes.
Explain that, Nancy.
By the charter that we've done this before, and the election was going to happen, is there'll actually be 9 seats up. But 6 of the seats are going to get 4-year terms. And the last time we did it by the 6 highest vote getters got the 4-year terms. And then the other 3, the next 3 voters get the unexpired terms.
So
how we
that's-
did it the last time, because the charter does say that the council can appoint to the next general election. So that's why you're gonna have these up and the regular 6 seats.
And it'll fix itself eventually.
Right, I'll put it out for you.
Can I just make one comment on the subject?
Right now, I'd like to do the interviews,
Okay.
please. Thank
All
you. Michael C. Dakotas, 19 Louise Drive.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself,
I
why
would
you
love to.
would like to be on the Budget Committee, and what special qualifications you have for this position.
Okay, well, thank you for allowing me to come in front of you and tell you a little bit about myself. In light of the meeting being long already and warm in here, I'll try to be quick. I live at 19 Louise Drive. I have 3 children. One went through the school system and 2 more are in the school system now. I live with my wife, and I'm very involved in town. I'm at most of the meetings, whether budget committee or town council or school committee. I'm on the PTO at Pecasset School. In my professional life, I'm a diabetes educator with a pharmaceutical company. My wife is a CNA. And one thing I've done in my past is worked with lots of people. I used to be a school teacher for 4 years. And I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car for 5 years, and I was a manager and supervisor. I managed people under me. One thing about Enterprise Rent-A-Car, it's a good training tool. You manage your business, your branch, your fleet, your people. And then I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for about 13 years. I deal with professionals, surgeons, physicians, deal with a lot of I guess you would say a lot of communication skills, a lot of follow-up, a lot of see-through, a lot of pull-through. And what I wanted to offer on the budget committee, I thought maybe of running last year, but I didn't know anything about it and how it worked. So I came to a lot of meetings to learn, be educated on it. And I think at this point, with these opportunities and openings after running for charter review, I thought maybe this would be a good time to put my name in the hat and see if I could get back to the town of Tiverton, communicate with people, maybe have an open ear, give some ideas, and listen and learn. And that's what I'd like to do.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you if you've been to Budget Committee meetings. I know you have, but you were at least half of the Budget Committee meetings that I was at. Any other questions from the council? Any other questions?
Madam President?
Yes, Councilor Edwards?
Just one. Mr. Dakotas, do you have experience budgeting in your professional career that may lend itself to the Budget Committee?
I mean, maybe a little bit. In what I do now, we do have a budget where we spend. Those spending are opportunities we do with physicians and surgeons, whether it be bringing in lunch, operating educational programs at night at restaurants. We do have budgets. We have to budget lots of things. We do displays. We do diabetes seminars. We have a budget. But more when I worked with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, when you ran the branch, you ran everything from the electric bill to the cars to the tire rotations to damages and dents. I mean, you ran the branch to a nail, and I have a lot of experience with budgets with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
The next candidate is Jennifer Jocelyn, 123 Russell Drive. Hi, Jen. Same thing as I asked Mike, tell us about yourself, why you would like to be on the Budget Committee, and what special qualities you have that would serve us well.
Okay. I'm a hospitality guest services manager for Howard Johnson in Middletown. I've been there for the last 15 years. I manage a staff of 17. I have to create revenue budgets. I have to create payroll budgets. I also have to adhere those budgets that are created. I've lived in town for 7 years. I attended many of the Budget Committee meetings last year. The ones that I did not attend, I watched on YouTube. I also wrote a lot of letters last year concerning the budget process. I do have 2 children in Tiverton schools, and I would like to see some representation of some parents on the Budget Committee as well. It's a demographic that's not currently being represented by the candidates that were elected, and I would like to have that taken into consideration when you're trying to advocate for budgets and things like that. It's not my only reason for applying, but I thought it would be a nice representation to have someone there that was also using the service.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. LeBeau?
What's your other reason?
What's my other reason?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You said that's one of my reasons.
One of my other reasons is
Yeah.
I think it was a learning process from being able to attend and see what went into it, see what every budget was, what every dollar amount was, and how it impacted the town and every service that we had here. It wasn't just schools, it was the police, the fire. We all remember about the vehicles, the packs that they needed, and every single dollar. And I think that it all has to be weighed. The job is to weigh the taxpayer's ability against the services. So I think that would be another reason. I hope I answered that.
Good answer under pressure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
David J. Paul, 175 Warren Avenue, has contacted us. He had a prior engagement this evening, and we will plan to interview him at the next meeting. John A. Perkins, Jr., 61 Peaceful Way.
Hi.
Hi, John. I'm going to repeat myself. Tell us about yourself. Why would you like to be on the Budget Committee, and what special qualities you have that would serve us well?
Okay, well, starters, my wife and I have lived in Tiverton since 1999. I professionally am a yacht broker, have run 2 offices, John Alden Company in Boston, and later when we moved to Rhode Island in '89, the Little Harbor Ted Hood organization, which we took into becoming a real international force in the yacht brokerage business. And I managed those 2 offices, and then in '09, I became a partner in a newly formed yacht brokerage partnership called Wellington Yacht Partners, and we've grown that to 10 yacht brokers in 3 states, and it's worked pretty well. What do I bring? I think I understand money. I think I understand needs. I think I'm a good listener, and I think I can do a pretty good job of making sense out of things. And if nothing else, in the yacht brokerage world, I'm a pretty fair negotiator, and that might be a talent that some of these boards would find helpful, and this one in particular, I hope.
Have you been to Budget Committee meetings?
I have. I also probably know them from the back seat better than the front seat with Nancy.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Madam President?
Yes, Councilor Egbert.
Yes.
Mr. Perkins, can you describe any budget-related experience that you might have that would be relevant to this position?
Well, when you're running I shouldn't say a company, a division of a company, you better be aware of what's going on, and I think I am qualified.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you.
As I said before, or tried to say before, applications are open until September 15th. So at our next meeting, we will interview David J. Paul and whoever else has applied, and we'll go on from there. I want to thank you all for applying and showing interest in this position. Town Administrator, Chief Blakey. Approval to hire probationary officers. Chief Blakey's recommendation.
Thank you, Madam President. Chief Blakey was sitting down now. In your backup, Chief Blakey has made a recommendation to hire all 5 cadets, recruits, and endorse that recommendation and urge the council to support that. As you can see from the backup, we've laid out how we'll pay for this within the current budget. We'll admit up front, what's not discussed in here, because it's a hard figure to calculate, is the pension cost to the police pension. So that's not something that we're able to address to precisely say that what that cost will be. But I think it's fair to say that over the long term, next few years, we would have to hire 5 new recruits, 5 new policemen, just due to attrition anyway, and that eventually this is going to affect the pension. The question is, are we willing to make the investment now, both in these officers, into getting them on board after they've been trained, and having them available to us now. Chief Blakey can go into sort of the details of the officers in question, but also the ramifications of if we don't hire all of them, how long it will take us to get another recruit through the process. So if I may, I'll turn it over to Chief Blakey.
I just want to, I was just a tiny bit disappointed that there wasn't an explanation on why our roster is 32. Because if you look back, in 2012, we were 26.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, and I'm not criticizing, I just wanted to know how we got there. Now, in 2017, we're at 32. And I've been on the council since 2012. And I just wanted to know what the reasoning is that we went this far up. And I'm sure there's an explanation, and I might not remember it. But I was hoping to get some kind of history with this explanation.
Some of the figures that you've provided as far as the staffing, they're not accurate in the fact that it's basically, I'll call it a rolling census of the department, and when it's taken, there may be a lull, there may be a training people maybe in the academy. So you're not going to get the true figure, but we're usually around 30 people, and we're in kind of, I've been here 14 years as your chief, and I think for a matter of probably 18 months to 2 years, we've actually been completely staffed. People leaving, people retiring, or for whatever reason. So we're in a constant flux, and that's probably would be the best way I could explain why our numbers fluctuate such.
Well, to be fair, in 2014, we were 29, 15, 30, and 16, 29.
Okay.
Now, what I understand is with the 5 recruits, we're 32. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam President, can you just say those numbers again? 2014 was 29?
29, 30, 29, 32. You can go on. I'm sorry, I just wanted to.
I'm glad to can clear it up. Over the year, particularly this year, we've had such an increase in our call volume, and as you can see, our overtime rate, some productivity also reflects upon that. But I'll give you from 2010 to 2016 stats, we've gone up 15% from 16,700 calls for service to 19,600 in that period of time. So we're constantly increasing. With the increase in staffing or increase in activity, all the major traffic citations, traffic stops are going up in the 40s percentile. Our drunk driving is going up 261%. And I mean, those are some of the stats that address quality of life issues within our community to keep our roads safe, just in that area. The 5 new recruits I will guarantee you, they will cut down on overtime. simply because there's just more people that I can pick from, keep minimum staffing where it is, and you will save money in that area. As part of my report that I indicated, such that we're going to have substantial savings in overtime. And so that's one area that that's going to be beneficial.
So that would, excuse me, that would be the minimum staffing of 26 you're talking about?
That's a minimum staff. I'm talking, when I say minimum staffing, I say minimum staffing of personnel on the road. Okay?
Which is what number?
3, which you don't want to get into that with me tonight because I'm
No, I've
totally
gone
against
into that with you before, yeah.
Okay, yes, that's totally unsafe for this community
So
and my
it's-
police officers.
It's 3 per shift, is that what you're telling
3
me?
per shift minimum.
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 But what is there daily? Is there 3 per shift?
There are usually, depending on the season, summer months, all the busier times, there are 3.
Okay, because of vacations and...
Vacation and compensatory time that they can accumulate over the course of the year contractually.
So how about in the fall and winter, where there's less vacations, how many men are on per shift?
Per shift?
In the car.
It would fluctuate. You start talking on a weekend, it's going to go back to 3. You start talking during the week, it'll be 4, 5 on a very good day.
Okay.
But, that would be the flux.
Yeah, I was just curious what minimum was. That's what I was asking. Okay, go ahead.
May I ask a clarifying question, Madam President? When you say 3, that's 3 patrol officers, right? That's not including like sergeants or lieutenants? We're talking
No, ma'am, that is everything.
3.
3. Correct. 3 patrolmen, or it could be 1 sergeant, 2 patrolmen, but a maximum number of 3 for 33 square miles. And if we have 1 arrest for a warrant for anything, that takes 2 cars off the road, and I have 1 police officer for 33 square miles.
Don't sound too safe to me, Chief.
So, just 1 second, Randy, I'll give you the floor if you want it, okay? All right. So this 32 men would allow you to have more on the road?
Absolutely. I think that what it's going to...
What are you thinking the number would be?
I think it's, to be honest, quite honest with you, it's going to take a negotiation in the contractual language. But I know that the younger officers, the recruit officers coming on, do not have the accumulated accrued time off, so they won't be able to get as much time off. If we reduce the overtime, then the compensatory time should follow suit.
So would we pay overtime for anything above 3 officers?
No, we do not.
We do not.
We do not.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that was one of my biggest questions
Now,
when I was reading this.
If I may?
Yes.
If there's a need,
If there's something big going on.
situation going on, or we have something going, yes, there would be more than 3 ordered back in to adjust for the situation, yes.
So that's why you say that this will save in overtime. Now I get it.
Correct. Both cases would save in overtime, because if I had a bigger pool, then I don't have to let anyone off. The contract reads, if I have 4 men on, I cannot refuse a compensatory time shift for someone to leave. And then if anyone called in sick or something happened, then it's going to necessitate overtime.
Madam President?
Counselor Edwards?
I see Chief Lloyd looking at me, because I know that we've had many discussions with a lot of the, around minimum staffing, and it sounds to me like Chief Blakey's trying to do something similar to what the fire department's done, where they've maintained 2 over on a shift to prevent overtime to above minimum staffing. So am I correct in that assumption?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
Does this microphone work? There we go.
You have to go really into it tonight.
I guess so. So, Chief, what we have in the fire department now with the 9 guys on a shift is 2 over minimum staffing. So, essentially, having these 5 guys and that 32 number is going to keep us over the minimum staffing number on each shift. Therefore, when somebody does leverage compensatory time or take vacation time, you don't have to order somebody back in for more overtime. That's how we're arriving at the savings?
Essentially, yes.
Okay,
That's
thank
pretty
you.
much the same.
I'd like you to explain the budgeting, though, because I don't know if I'm totally convinced.
Say that again, please.
I'd like you to explain the budgeting. And I have one other question, which maybe the town administrator could answer, or you could. When somebody opts out for their health insurance plan, can they come at any time and say, I want the health insurance plan? Or is there an anniversary date where Is there an anniversary date?
Well, actually, I would first said yes, they can, but when you said the anniversary date, I'd have to go back and check and see if they have to wait until that anniversary date. That I'm not
Because
sure.
where I work, there's an open enrollment only one time a year.
I think, if I may,
Please.
if this person, whomever, and we're speaking about the new recruits primarily, I assume, because there are 3 of those individuals who have not opted to take our plan, looking at when they would have to, necessitate to do so, it's still it's in 2019. So I don't see that happening. But that being said, it would be foolish for anyone to opt into the program and have to pay their half midway through a year.
Halfway through the year.
Of what we pay. So they would basically be spending $1,000. I'll use that figure, because I think that's accurate for a single person. And the town would then match it with $1,000. It would be, and it would just be, would be kind of foolish mathematically or budget for them to spend that much money when they're already in an insurance program, which they are, and waste that $1,000 and get, let's say, 5 months or 6 months and spend have to pay the entire premium. That would be kind of foolish. So they could enroll, but I don't think they would.
Also, we've gone through the detail money before, so all the offices that are on Stafford Road every day, obviously, we're going to be bringing in more revenue.
If all the offices on Stafford Road are paid by a private vendor, nothing comes out of the town coffers. What happens there is a fee. Above and beyond the fee that's paid to the officers, there's money that's generated to the town, there's an administrative fee. That covers FICA, that covers everything.
Correct.
After everything is paid for the officer, there's 13% that goes into the town general fund on each hour that every officer works. So 13%, I got a check today for $4,000, 13%.
But that goes directly into the general fund.
That goes to the general fund, yeah.
All right.
But that's aside from the money that I get from the cruisers, and those are the monies that I used to buy a car a couple of years ago, if you recall.
Oh, I do,
So those are funds, and this past year, when we were trying to budget monies to take care of the recruits that were being trained, that's when I transferred, it was over $16,000 generated in that kitty, if you will, that was part of the budgeting process of the financial process to fund the officers while they were in the academy and training for the 12-week period. That's where that money comes from. Again, from outside vendors to the police budget to pay for the officers, not from the general fund.
Well, I looked at the update the treasurer has given us, and there's $4,000 more in there than we originally put in July right
We are
now.
going to have a lot of money in there this year. I
Which
don't want
can
to
be-
tell you that, but they really.
Well, yeah, but it's not the police, but it is a source if we're short in other accounts. Also, we can pull from
Oh,
that
yes,
account.
we did move that before, as I
Because that
said.
just doesn't have to be spent
As I
on.
said, we moved that and purchased a cruiser.
Correct. Council Edwards?
Thank you. Just to circle back on the health insurance question, and I know this because I just went through it, you should be able to join through the open enrollment period or when there is a change in your situation, change in status. So, for instance, you get married now, okay, you can hop on,
Oh, you have a
your
baby,
spouse's
or-
plan, you have a baby, whatever it is, whatever the situation, or if you're on, if you're a younger person, they're 26 and you're on your parents' plan, and now all of a sudden, you're 27, you're not on your parents' plan anymore. Now, that may be before the open enrollment, but you can get on the town health plan. So that's just how that works.
In the same line, in that age group, the younger people statistically do not use health care as much as the older individuals.
You're absolutely correct.
I have a question for the chief.
Councilor LeBeau?
It's more of a statement. Being in law enforcement for the last 19-plus years, with all this finance stuff that we're talking about right now, that's secondary. When we dial 911, these guys are there. Every time we need the police, fire, these guys show up on duty. You have no idea how dangerous it is out there. We have one person on the road. If they're tied up, you get that little girl sitting over there, I don't know her name, but you imagine her being on the road by herself because 2 guys got something tied up. So.
I assure you she'll do a good job.
Oh, absolutely. But they're all going to do a great job. They got great training. But we need to make sure that the safety for these guys are there and that for the town residents are there. When you dial 911 and they don't show up for 10 minutes, you're saying, where are they? Everybody is. We hear, they took them 8 minutes to get here. You know why? Because we don't have enough police officers on the road. And just for the record, they're no longer recruits. They're police officers. They earn that title. And for the rest of the night, I hope we call them that.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's just, they're referred to as recruits on here.
I've been through it, and it sucks being called rookie.
All right, police officers. Randy, I agree that the safety counts. I just feel if we're going to do this, we're all comfortable on where the money's coming from, so that in 5 months from now, we say, oops, we can't, what happened?
If I had it, I would
there.
pay the way, but I don't have that much.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Hill?
Madam
Oh,
President?
okay.
Oh.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so I had a couple of questions on the budget also. But let me just say, I understand, I came to the same immediate thing first about what Councilor Edwards said. Yeah, people's change, their life's positions change. They want to have, they can have life insurance, they can't have it. So, so they might not, they opted not to participate in the town's health plan, that's fine, but we don't know how long that would be. So that's, and you would,
I agree with you.
and that's fine.
That's constant flux, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So one of the things, all right, so in the first, you have this, the one that you gave
I
me?
wrote it.
Huh? I know you wrote it, but this is number one, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you're looking to see, the current budget has enough for 3, correct?
No, ma'am, for item 3?
No,
Which-
in general. It's the current budget, okay, I'm sorry, the first paragraph. The current budget supports the hiring of 3 recruits, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And, okay, so then, the first item, you were trying to say where you're going to get some money to, well, that's what you're trying to do, get some more money to hire the other 2, correct?
What I'm trying to show you within my budget
Yep.
that I have the money to pay this fiscal
Okay,
year.
okay, so I guess the first one, you said that part of it was, it includes the salary of the lieutenant who left the department.
Mhm.
But I'm assuming you're going to want to replace that person with another lieutenant. Is that not true?
We already have that rank filled right now as an acting lieutenant,
Mhm.
and that's already budgeted and figured in.
Mm-hmm.
But based on the salary, the $29,000, $29,062.76 was overage in the budget that we had, that wasn't deducted when we were doing the overall budget. He was, at the time, he was still on our rolls,
Yes,
so his funds were counted in that money. Am I
okay.
explaining myself?
No.
Maybe I'm not getting it.
No,
I'm
because
thinking-
don't we have to replace that lieutenant per contract?
That's what I'm thinking.
I think we're going to meet on Friday to see what we're going to do in that area, but, no, we do have to, we've already replaced him, we have an acting lieutenant in that position being paid now.
But he might become, if he becomes, does an acting lieutenant get full benefits?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess,
But we have a higher paid person, he was a higher paid than what we're hiring.
no, I understand that, but I was just thinking you're going to have to replace that lieutenant.
And we are, but.
Pardon?
So you have replaced the lieutenant? Is that what you're telling me?
What's that, please?
You have replaced
We
the
have,
lieutenant?
we have an acting lieutenant who's getting all the benefits and the salary currently in our budget.
So, yeah,
May
okay,
I-
I'm still mixed up here.
May I ask a question on lieutenants?
Absolutely.
How many not acting, regular lieutenants do you have right now?
I have, sorry, I should have known, I have 1, 2, 3,
You have 3, and 1 acting lieutenant.
correct.
But aren't you supposed to have 5?
We have an administrative lieutenant that we're trying to negotiate right now. We're in the process of negotiating, taking that position away, and that would be another savings. I'm not counting that money right now. That's not being counted. I still have that money.
Okay, I'm only saying that because, I mean, I did look at the contract,
Mm-hmm.
and the contract says we're supposed to have
I know
5
that.
lieutenants.
I know that, ma'am.
So how can we not have 5 lieutenants and not be paying 5 lieutenants' salary if that's what the contract says?
Because I have a
we
vacancy. Right now, I have vacancies of 1 lieutenant's vacant. I have a vacancy.
But you do have to fill it, right?
No, that's what I'm trying to tell you, is Friday, we are meeting with the union to try to negotiate some of this that they've already met on, but I still have the money budgeted. Right now, I still have the money budgeted for the 5 lieutenants.
Which doesn't count for the money you're going to spend on the new officers, the new police officers. So that money you're not even including in your budget right now.
lost me. I have that $29,000 extra that was budgeted for the lieutenant who left,
Which you're not spending.
which I'm not spending, I'm not spending that. That's aside from that.
Madam President?
Anything further, Councilor Hilton?
Oh, I had to go.
Go ahead. I interrupted Councilor Rowland. Go ahead.
Okay. Moving on, since we're still all confused. I'll go to the next one, number 4. And it's I'm just asking you these questions, all
Okay,
right? I'm
please,
just
yes.
trying to figure this stuff out. All
Okay.
right, so in the fourth one, number 4, let's see. Recruit officers are contractually not allowed to attend college during their probationary period, which will extend to the end of the current fiscal year. So then that would suggest that after that probationary period is over and they pass their probationary period, then they could start going into college, correct? That we would be obliged to pay for. If you want 5 people, that means, I'm just suggesting, that means that we'd have to then be able to pay 5.
I'm trying to look and tell you,
Do you see where I am?
I do, but
Okay.
most of the officers the new officers have a minimum. One has a master's and he's not, I don't believe he's gonna go for his doctorate.
Okay.
I can't say that for sure. And then I think the others, all have their bachelor's degree.
Okay, so,
So I don't think, they're not going, they may go for their master's degree, but that's
oh, so they
another
could also do
budgetary
their
year.
masters?
Oh, yeah.
That's possible.
Okay, but I know one has a
Right,
master's.
okay, but so that means if you got 5, you could go 4. 4 could go for their masters.
If they
After
so-
their
if they so
probationary.
chose to.
Yeah, yeah.
Next year.
Yes,
Okay, and then just finally,
in a different fiscal year, ma'am.
yes,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
So
We're talking about this fiscal year.
we are, but hiring 5 people, that also goes on to other, that's a lot of people.
Sure.
So some people have suggested that we've heard from the town of Lincoln, and you're going to get this question, so you might as well get it from me. The town of Lincoln had said, okay, they didn't have, they had a certain number of police before the casino, and they had the same number after the casino,
Okay.
okay? And and the casino has told us, the casino people have said, yes, they're gonna load it up with security over there. There's no reason to have more people because everything is gonna be secure there. Now, I've also heard from you that, on the other hand, there's gonna be more people. There's gonna be a casino there, so you might have to increase. So bottom line question, instead of 5, why couldn't you have 3 officers? Where does this, it's just like, where is it, or 2? It's like, the number to me is just like, where is 5 coming from? Because if you have to have more people, okay, and that's the question. Some people say yes, some people say no. So I guess my question also, in addition to this, is not so much, well, I've got some money from here, some money from here, that'll take care of another year. Why do we have to have 5 more people? Because we could get, you could hire another person in a few years, 4 or 5 years, because we know, we've got the 5-year plans, not from you, and I understand you've been busy, that's okay.
Okay.
But why does it have to be 5?
I can tell you, this has nothing to do with the casino.
The number
Please
that you
just
want?
keep it down.
Right now, I don't believe, I honestly do not believe, this has nothing to do with future hiring for the casino.
Okay,
That's another possibility for another day. But what I'm talking about right now, the here and now, is the number of the calls for service,
Yeah.
the amount of calls, the productivity of the police officers
okay.
necessitates more people. I'm trying to save you money in overtime. All these areas that I've listed are areas that's going to benefit the community and save you money. We have trained people. We still have that officer in the wing who I should know by December if we're going to lose that person, which will necessitate hiring another person, which will take 18 months roughly, depending. I know October 6th is the deadline to put a name in the academy.
Okay, well, can I interrupt for a second? When you ask to hire another person, do you usually want a new person going through the new training? You don't want to do like a lateral move from somebody else?
I have been very successful with laterals.
You have been or
I
haven't?
have, ma'am, yes.
Yep.
The problem is we pay the lowest in the area, and people
Yep.
don't want to laterally come here.
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fact.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just-
I'm not
I'm-
trying to be derogatory, but
And
that
I'm
is a
not
fact.
trying, and I'm not, I'm just trying to understand.
So to do that
Yes.
lateral, we've been very successful for what we have.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm very pleased with the officers. They're outstanding. And, but the fact is, I can't entice people to come here unless it's a second career, which would make me very leery. Are you coming here just to be a warm body? And I don't think the town should deserve to pay people just to fill a spot in. So I'd like to see people have energy and still want to do the job.
Okay.
Madam President, may I?
Yes.
I think Councilor Ryan sort of hit on the crux of the argument. There's the, can we afford these folks, and do we need these folks?
Right.
So on the affordability, first of all, the budget already has paid for 3 of them. So we're really talking the delta of 2. And what Chief Blakey has outlined here is based on a certain lieutenant leaving and other costs that will be deferred. For this budget year, we can afford them. Now, getting to the needs side, we've had innumerable conversations over the last 3 months on this topic, and probably the most compelling discussion had nothing to do with the casino, had nothing to do with something in the future. It actually was the conversation you just had a few minutes ago. We have 3 people on the street, minimum now, and we need 4. And there's the benefit of overtime going down, which will make everybody here happy. But having the 4, the ability to have 4 on the road was the convincing operational argument for me that there's the need. We've made a significant investment in their academy time and in their field training time for the last 12 weeks. And I don't think Chief has had a chance to mention it, but if and we're probably already too late to try to develop a list and get somebody into the January class, so we would have to put somebody into the July class. The July class would mean they graduate in December of 2018, which means they would be going through field training through the winter of 2019, and they would be at this very position sometime in the spring, early summer of 2019. March of 19. I personally, I would not want us to be in that position of having to fill 2 positions because we potentially lose someone to an active officer to a transfer this fall, and attrition happens. And on average, we have lost about 2 a year, based on what Chief has told me over the last several years. So that's why I'm recommending that we do have a need, and we do have the ability, within reason. I mean, we're not covering every single last cent, but moving forward, we basically can cover most of the 54,000 that this is going to cost us in this budget year. And obviously, next budget year is a totally different animal, and we'll go forward with a budget that will be proposed to you that covers that.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we hire all 5.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second, but there will be continued discussion on this. Councilor Hilton, did you want to say something?
I want to ask the chief a couple of questions, if that's okay. So, on staffing, and I just sort of did this ballpark, but do you have time periods where half of your available people aren't available? In other words...
Could we please quiet down back there? It's very difficult to hear up here.
So, I mean, I just did this in round numbers, right? If you have 30 people, and they each work 5 days a week, that's right? They work 5 shifts a week in theory?
4. They have a 4 and 2 rotating shift, which equals an additional 17 days off a year for the person, for each person.
Well,
trust me.
I guess what I'm saying is, even with 30 people, right? If you're saying to me, and I realize that you're in the office and Captain Jones is in the office and the detectives are doing detective work, but I'm still, if you're saying to me the minimum is that you've only got 9 patrolmen a day to work with sometimes,
No, what we
or
gen-
nine,
no,
or
what-
9 people to work with a day I mean, if you're saying you've got 3 shifts, right?
What happened, the shifts are gonna, you have to, if you and I were working a shift, I would work 2 days with you and 2 days with Denise. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
But that's not
And
my,
that's
that's
how
not my
they
question.
stagger the shifts.
Right, but that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, that if you're telling me that you're at 3 men a shift, so when you've got 3 shifts a day,
Okay.
that's 9 people,
What would-
right? When you're on minimum staffing, you have 9 people. You're telling me that you've got out of, right, well,
Okay, I'll use your number of
28-something
9.
people, that you've only got 9 available a day,
Okay.
which means that, is it that much, I mean, how much overlap is there on vacation time and sick days and all that? It just seems odd to me that you're down to 9 people a day to be on the road out of almost 30 people.
Counsel, I can guarantee you that the time off that's accrued, given to the police officers, this community, in lieu of pay raises, is a problem, okay? I don't want to get into this contractual semantics of all this, but that's why we don't have staffing on the road. A lot of it is contractual. But with the hiring of these people, we will have 7 persons on each shift. They will rotate, and they will have days off. It will save on overtime. We will have staffing on the road. Hopefully, we'll have the 4 people on the road most of the time, but then again, that's a contractual item. And that's what I'm trying to do, make the roadway, to make the town safe, as well as the officers. That's the purpose of having this staffing. And if you're having difficulty, is it to comprehend how much time they have off? Am I correct in that assumption?
I'm just looking at the number of people, and when you're telling me that there are times when we've only got, and that you're telling me this includes lieutenants and sergeants and everybody, right?
Everyone.
Everybody, that with an almost 30-person department, that there are days when you only have 9 men available all day long without paying overtime.
That is absolutely correct.
I have another question for you, and this is not a challenge, it's a question.
Okay.
If you feel comfortable enough that all of these folks are gonna really cover your overtime, would you be willing to trade back in the overtime equal to the difference, the $50,000 difference?
Would I be willing to trade it in?
In other words, would you say, you know, you'd give us?
We try to cover all.
What I'm asking you.
You're giving me a hypothetical that's ridiculous.
No, I'm asking you a question. You're telling us we need to come up with, we need to come up with a minimum of, what is it,
$50,000.
We
We've
need
come
to
up
come
with
up with-
53, I believe. 54.
We need to come up with a minimum of $53,000. And we haven't talked about even what this is gonna do in terms of our recommended pension payment next year, which is gonna take a hit, right?
Which is also going to be improved because all the people are on a 25-year plan rather than a 20.
I'll be honest, I asked the treasurer about this today, and I said, how much of a hit is that gonna be if we're gonna stay at the same minimum recommended contribution level? And she said, I don't know yet, but you're not gonna like the number. So it is gonna, it is something, I mean, we're gonna have to, and unfortunately, apparently, that can't be calculated at this time. I mean, it can't. So there is that number. And some of the, the other areas here with the savings are kind of, they're a little fuzzy. So,
I did everything on the low end, so it wouldn't be as fuzzy for you. I wanted to build it up to the point where I want to be realistic, but I actually think in some cases we could be better. But I wanted to be in the ballpark and be accurate.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying to you is, if you're very confident, which is what you're saying, that the overtime would be substantially reduced.
I will stand by that.
Okay. Are you confident enough that the overtime would be reduced by $59,000?
Are you confident enough to tell us we're not going to have any hurricanes or blizzards or any other major or a homicide? I can tell you confidently that there's going to be a substantial savings in overtime.
Is it equal to this?
I think it's
Do you
very
think?
close to it, yes.
So
I
you
think it's
that
substantial.
You think that there's almost $60,000 a year savings in overtime?
I would think that combined with all the other things that I think that we're going to realize, I think we're in a very good position. Please don't make it a one light item budget.
I'm not-
I won't do that.
I'm not trying to make this a one-line item budget, but, you know, this is a substantial number over what
I
you're
agree with you.
budgeting. And we're also picking money from other parts of your budget to try and come up with this. And I have to be honest, that makes me really uncomfortable. It especially makes me really uncomfortable this soon after the start of the fiscal year. It's very early to be doing that. And, you know, I too have looked at sort of the history of where we've gotten, how this department has sort of grown organically. And the one thing that bothers me about it is that, and I went back through all the minutes to try and figure this out, other than in the contract negotiation, where we set a minimum of 26 men, and there was actually a man that was given up to pay for pay raises. Other than that, as the department has grown from 26, 27, 29, 30, 29, and now we're up to 33, there has never been a single policy discussion in the minutes with any town council about how we got here. It just sort of, and it looks to me when I look at it, and you'll have to forgive me, Chief, but,
Go ahead.
you know, at some point in a little while, you will be enjoying your grandchildren in golf and maybe some other things in your successors.
I don't like golf.
Madam President?
Can we stay on point, because it's getting late?
No, I'll gladly answer your question.
So you must like something, so a sport there or something that you're gonna do. And the point is, your successor, whoever that is gonna have to deal with this. And, you know, it looks to me a little bit like, you know, where we try and manage, somebody might be retiring, somebody might be going, we put some people in the academy, and then we hire all of them because they all passed, because they were all great candidates, and then only one person retired, and that seems to be the pattern, because, and what bothers me is that there's nothing to tie this to that relates to need. I can't, there's nothing that ties this that I can relate to need. It seems as though we don't have we just don't have a good feel. And I have to be honest, I'm having a hard time how we could have signed a contract not very long ago that said 26, and somehow we decided that was okay and that it was a safe number, safe for the community and safe for the officers. And here we are, that contract's not up, and we're gonna go from 26 officers to 32.
May I address you?
Yes, thank you.
First of all, several months ago, you asked me to show you and to work some numbers. I did that. And then I was accused of transparency, or there was a remark about transparency. The need, I explained to you, there's 3,000 more calls for service in the last 6 years. Our statistics are way up. You want productivity, you want your streets safe, it costs some money to do so. I want officer safety, I want citizen safety, I want these people not to have to wait 10 minutes for a car, okay? These are the things that I'm talking about. These numbers, this contractual numbers you spoke of, those were minimums. You want to have 26, or 27 officers? Hold on to your budget, because it's going to be $250,000 minimal, I tell you, in overtime, because I've taken all the figures for 1 year for compensatory time, which was another negotiated item that seems to have left the room, and that cost $268,000 for 1 year. Okay, you cannot operate like that. We don't have that. I mean, this is now, and we have a lot of things going on here that I think, please don't stick our head in the sand that they're going to go away. Whether it be something, and I'm not trying to use scare tactics, I won't even go down that road. But understand this, we're not an island, and people are coming here. We have things that are going to happen in this community. And I think you should address them. I think I've addressed them. I've done my job. Historically, Ms. Hilton, my budget has been fair and just and on spot for 14 years, and it's never gone over. And I feel very confident that whoever my successor is, I will not hand off trouble to.
I have one question, which
Go ahead.
these 5 new police officers
Mhm.
will not be getting will they be getting as much comp time? Does,
If there's no time available, whether it be overtime or compensatory time, no.
No.
Now, they may choose to take compensatory time over overtime, but there's still gonna be another savings, and you can't take comp time if it creates overtime. We're gonna address this Friday, there's another
Well,
negotiation.
I know that part.
Completely
Right.
different, okay.
but comp time causes overtime sometimes. Am I right? It's
No.
not supposed to,
It's
but
not
does it
supposed
ever? Okay.
May I interrupt you?
My next,
Does it happen when someone takes a comp day and then someone calls in sick?
yes.
Beyond my control, to be completely honest.
My next question is, you're up to 33 men.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to probably have something happen in December and lose. I
Two
mean,
people.
Excuse me, Madam President, 32.
32.
I have 33, but that's okay. Okay, 32.
Oh, that piece of paper is pre the lieutenant leaving.
Free the
30, 32.
okay. You're up to 32.
Mhm.
My question
Thank
is, if you have 2 men leave,
Mhm.
are you going to want to put more men in the academy? You'll be up to 30. And could we live with 30 until the next budget season?
Possibly.
That's what I'm
Unless
saying.
we were able to recruit people from lateral transfers.
But this is what I get worried about.
Okay.
I've been on the council since 2012. I don't think it was, I think is what happened. We sent some to the academy, we got some in, and these people never retired or never left.
Correct.
So what I'm asking is, could we be conscious of that? And so if we go down to 30, say, not say, I want to put 2 more in to get to 32 again. Let's see how 30 works. Okay? And then, in the next budget season, when we have to budget, then we have to discuss this. And we have to discuss this during union contracts.
I agree with that.
Because if the union wants this much men to feel, for them to be safe, as well as us to be safe,
Absolutely.
then this needs to be a negotiation thing. We need to talk about this, and because they agreed to 36. They agreed during contracts to 26. And so if they want to do a good job, and say, we want to keep Tiverton safe, and we want to keep ourselves safe, because I don't want to be the only police officer in town if something happens, then we have to work this out a little bit.
I agree.
Because I'm really worried that next year you're going to hire 3 more, because 3 may be leaving, and we're going to be sitting here with 36. And I'm going to have these young people in front of me who did all they could to become the police officers here, and say, how did we get to 36 now? At some point, this has to stop.
I agree with you. We said from the onset, when we were talking about numbers, how they
Right.
fluctuated, I think we touched upon that. That's how this fluctuation happens. I'll be honest with all of you. I can't tell somebody, there's no servitude here. I can't make you stay in the town of Tiverton. No one can. But we can make it as, I think if we send a signal now and we start laying people up, I don't know if I'm going to, we don't hire these people, I don't think I'm going to morally be able to attract more people. Again, but that's another.
But we don't know what's gonna
But I
happen.
do believe with you, I do agree with you, and I do believe this has to be at the contract table. I've said this for years, okay? I am adamantly, I can't say enough, against compensatory time.
I know you are.
Madam President?
Madam President.
Yes, ma'am.
If-
Wait, yes, Don, just let me see what.
I'd like to call the question.
Well, now I have called the question. Do I have a second to move the motion? All those in favor to move the motion? I have a,
I thank you all. I will not.
no, you didn't get anything yet.
Let's go.
I'm looking at you like, thank you for what? I just moved a motion, that's all I did.
All right,
All
let's
right, so the motion is to hire
Hire all 5 new police officers.
all 5 new police officers. I believe Joe made the second. There's no discussion.
I wanted to ask if someone would clarify their motion.
We just-
Given what the chief just said about committing to, if we lose people this year, that we're going to sit tight if we do this, and we sit tight
I
with
think
we
that
have?
would be up to the powers to be.
I think that's entirely
policy.
separate from this motion.
Sure.
We should put it on the next agenda.
What we should do is when we hire the new person, which we are sad to see you go, but we are going to get a new chief, we need to discuss this with him and discuss our policy as a board, that we need to be very careful how many men we put in the academy on presumptions that people are going to leave, and then keep track of how many extra we got.
This is not
All right.
debatable.
Okay.
Some-
I-
actually,
I'm go-
All right, so
I'm
I have a-
going to withdraw my request. I think I got my answer, that it feels to me like that's a general consensus, and I am going to withdraw
All
my...
right, because I'm really not supposed to have discussion. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor to hire the 5 police officers? Against? Motion carries 6-1.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Do a good job, guys.
I will try to, I'm very proud of the office.
And girl.
Welcome. I want to welcome the new police officers and wish you all the success here in Tiverton. Thank you. Finished business, Neil Horn.
Can we take 2 minutes?
Is that a motion to take a 10-minute recess?
10-4.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?